And now we're going to run a CPU benchmark. And a quick check of temperatures shows about 105 degrees on the Flip 7, a little bit less on the Flip 5, about the same on the Flip 4, and nearly 110 on the original Flip. Wow, we get some really surprising results here. The Flip 7 is worse than the Flip 5 in terms of performance right here. The other thing I've noticed too is that the Flip 7 screen is starting to dim. So there seems to be some sort of a performance inefficiency, or maybe it's just that the heat dissipation isn't quite as good on the Flip 7 versus previous generations, which is really surprising because this is a larger footprint. It's a wider screen. So that obviously means more surface area to dissipate heat with. Now, obviously a bigger screen means there's going to be more heat generated by the screen itself, but generally you'd expect a larger device to do better with heat performance. And all of these devices just ran both of those tests back to back, so they each had the same thermal load put on them. So just out of curiosity, I'm going to let these completely cool down, then I'm going to run the test again and see if that changes the results. Alright, all the devices have had a chance to cool down. Now let's go ahead and run the test again. So we have improvements across the board with the exception of the original Flip, which actually got a little bit worse, but it's still pretty close to the original result. The Flip 7 though saw a massive improvement with the reduction in temperature, but the single core score was still less than the single core score on the Flip 5. So I think it's important to bring in the Flip 6's score for a really good comparison to last year's models. So as you can see here, the average Flip 6 score was still better than the Flip 7, and the multi-core score was only a little bit less. And I think this comes down to the processor being used. So if I scroll down a little bit on these to the CPU information, you can see that the previous generations have all been using Qualcomm chips, specifically the Snapdragon chips, which are known to be incredibly fast and efficient chips. But this year, Samsung switched to an Exynos chip, specifically the Exynos 2500. And it's clear that the Exynos chips just aren't quite as good as the Snapdragon chips. Something else I've noticed with the Flip 7 is that it does seem to get hotter to the touch compared to the previous generations with the same workload. Now again, this is just preliminary testing over about a day or two, so that could change over time.